One of the biggest stories everyone's been talking about on the racetrack is the Sauber team seat. The lineup for 2025 is now completely finished. Bortoleto will join Hülkenberg. Both Bottas and Joe won't have seats for next year's racing season, even though it's really sad to see Bottas, who was doing amazing not too long ago, not racing in 2025. There's still hope for him. He might get back together with Mercedes as their backup driver. There are also big question marks about how well Antonelli will do in his first year as a new driver. Can we see an amazing comeback from the Finnish driver? It's really one of the saddest stories in Formula One that we won't see Bottas racing as a main driver in 2025. He said that his talks with Sauber and Audi were going really well and were almost finished. But when the new boss came in and Bottas arrived, things went downhill for the driver who has won 10 races. It looks like Audi wants to go with younger drivers, which makes sense because of how great drivers like Behrman, Colapinto and Lawson have been doing. Also, the racing grid will get another new young driver from Alpine, Jack Doohan, so it was easier for Audi to decide what they wanted to do since they know they'll be new to everything in 2026 and will need to learn a lot from everyone around them. You already know that 3 people can't fit into 2 spots, so Bot now without a seat for 2025. This is definitely the worst time to not have a racing seat, especially when so many talented young drivers are joining the sport. With all this happening, the only way for him to stay active in the sport is to take the backup driver job at Mercedes. That's the team where he managed to win 10 races from 2017 and later, and he never missed getting into the top qualifying session even once in his whole career. Bottas sent a really heartfelt message when he found out he wouldn't be part of Formula One, at least not in 2025. The 10-time race winner said that situations like this are never easy for anyone, but after all the good and deep talks they had over the past weeks, they realized that the right conditions to grow this project together just weren't there. These past years with the team have been an incredible journey full of growth, challenges, and unforgettable moments. He's grateful for all the experiences they shared together and the trust and support he felt every step of the way. Even though it's time to move on, he'll always carry a piece of this team with him and looks forward to seeing what the future holds for both of them. When talking about the chance to join Mercedes as their backup driver, Bottas said since he doesn't have anything signed with Sauber, he has to look at all his options, including going back to the Mercedes family. That's definitely one choice, and he would think about it. But there are other options too, like going back to what he really wants, which is to be a main racing driver. This situation was also talked about by Binotto, who might have made a mistake by not letting Bottas prove what he can do in a competitive car. We all know that the Finnish driver isn't the one to blame for the team's bad performance over the last couple of years. With Kik Sauber being in last place and the only team without any points, he has been doing way better than his teammate. He was holding on to his lifeline to stay in the sport for a longer time, but according to the new Chief Operating Officer and Chief Technology Officer of the team, Mattia Binotto, even though Bottas was a main candidate to sign with the team, it was a decision that came from many different factors. Now they're going with a younger candidate who's fighting to win the Formula 2 championship in a close battle with Hajjar, with just 1 race left in Abu Dhabi. Talking about it, Binotto said that when considering their driver lineup for the coming seasons, Valtteri was definitely a key candidate. With his fighting spirit, he often pushed the car way beyond what it could actually do. However, a decision had to be made. After open and helpful discussions, they both concluded that the final conditions couldn't be met, so they agreed that it was time to go separate ways. Valtteri will always have an open door here at Hinwil, but what's worth mentioning is that Mercedes is the team that could really use Bottas's help, even though most of his work would be behind the scenes and might not be directly seen on the racetrack. This is something that Red Bull has used a lot, thanks to the simulator work of Buemi, who hasn't been praised much but has put in lots of extra hours to bring the car to its best performance window. With feedback coming from Russell and Antonelli, Bottas wouldn't have a hard time trying to steer the car in the right direction. What's even more important is that he'll get to work with some familiar faces. Probably the most hated person from his point of view, James Vowles, is now gone since he had to constantly hear his voice telling him to let Hamilton through in races where it mattered most for Mercedes. Other than that, the technical director James Allison, the trackside engineer Andrew Shavlin, and the team principal Toto Wolff are all still there, standing and waiting for Bottas to commit to such a move. They are now on a path where they can't figure out how their car behaves, and they don't know how to add proper upgrades. This is mostly because a lot of mechanics left when Lewis Hamilton decided to leave the team. With proper feedback and understanding of the car, which Bottas knows really well, we're almost sure that he would be a great addition to the sport. Plus, if massive improvement is seen throughout the season, it would definitely mean that Wolff would put in a good word for his former driver, just like he did for Mick Schumacher. One thing is also worth mentioning: having Bottas help improve your car a lot will definitely help his future chances to return to the sport. If we look at what happened to Hülkenberg's career, who took 3 years away from the sport and worked as a backup driver, there's no doubt that Bottas still isn't done with racing. Yes, he might be looking at other career paths, but right now, getting back together with Mercedes is what's possible for him. he would be more than happy to help them get back to their winning ways, which is expected from 2026 onward. Now that they have full trust in the engine program, that will be really important with the new rules. His goal is to be a full-time F1 driver. But given the fact that he drove for Mercedes during his best years, he didn't quite expect that he would have to go down this difficult path to get a seat in the near future. What's also really good for Bottas is that while this wave of young drivers has basically kicked him off the grid, it's still not sure how much these drivers can actually deliver during a full season when the pressure will be extremely high. Remember that Joe was one of the few new drivers who was able to score points in their first race, which made everyone expect great things from his future in the sport. But he ended up going downhill and is now out of F1 just like Bottas, with his chances of coming back to the sport being almost zero. This is all going to be really important for the team's development, because they're now in a very difficult situation when it comes to how their car behaves. Hamilton doesn't really have the right motivation to fix things, and he started the season with this mindset now that he's signed with Ferrari starting in 2025. So Russell and Antonelli will need a lot of experienced help in the background, especially from someone who drove the car in different time periods. We must not forget that Bottas was thought of as a championship contender at the beginning of every competitive season at Mercedes, but he was further beaten by how amazing Hamilton was. He was just a driver that you cannot beat if you're on his team and you're competing on equal terms. All in all, the situation is going to be very difficult to figure out, with a lot of changes coming to the racing grid, and maybe even an 11th team joining sometime down the line. Bottas shouldn't be pessimistic about his chances of driving in the sport as a full-time driver. Being the multi-skilled driver he is, the 10-time race winner might try himself out in other racing categories while he's waiting for an F1 opportunity. Similar to what Raikkonen did with NASCAR, but his focus will always stay on this sport. With all of this in mind, do you think that Bottas deserved to be treated the way he was by Sauber? And more importantly, do you think that the team will regret signing Bortoleto, who hasn't driven a Formula 1 race yet and needs to prove himself, as a good option for the team? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in the GDPA's newest action against the FIA, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.